All In Sports Network. We love sports.
Coming to you from the land of brisket and barbecue, Lone Stars and Longhorns, this is All In Colts, presented by the Unstable Blues.
Welcome to our very first All In Colts episode, presented by the Unstable Blues. The NFL is thought to stand for not for long, and 37 Colts players found that out. In this episode, we will discuss the Colts preseason as well as the initial 53-man roster, plus the most important question heading into the season. So, let's go All In Colts.
Yes, I am Kevin, and this is my son Liam. Yep. We want to stop that music. We got this. And we are the Unstable Blues, and happy to be a part of Rogue Sports Media and All In Sports.
Yep.
We're here to talk about the Colts. So we got a few things to talk about from preseason and training camp. What are your takeaways from training camp and the preseason, sir?
What are my takeaways? I think just the number one thing that kind of comes to my mind is Shane being a very good coach. I knew he was a good coach, but this kind of helping me prove it because I saw little splashes of AR and what he can do. But as a quarterback, not as a running back / quarterback, which I think is what he truly is. I mean, because he can run the ball really well, as we saw with his little bit of performance last year. So I like how we didn't see much from AR. I think Latu played really, really well. I don't think he showed everything either, but he was always, like, whenever he's in there, always applying pressure. I think we know that we have a good run game. So just with all of our running backs that we have, everybody on the practice squad, everybody on the actual roster, even though that's only 3 running backs, but still. And then we know obviously who got injured. Jelani's out. So we have 4 tight ends, right? Then we have 6 wide receivers. So, but we have 10 O-line and 10 D-line. So we're focusing a lot on D-line. In reality, you don't run 5 down D-line, like hardly ever. So I don't know. It's a weird situation. I'm trusting Shane and Chris and all of them on it. We'll see how it kind of works out throughout the season. And then Adonai Mitchell is exactly what I thought he was going to be. I am very happy with the way he performed. I think, what do you have? What do you have?
Let's see. Let's go to my top performer. Okay. So I'm a little, maybe I'll get into it in a second, but top performer I would say is probably Adetomiwa Adebawore. Just simply because the preseason is not as focused on the starters. Great improvement from him. Good stuff like that. So I would say he's probably my top performer. Other one was probably Ronnie Harrison, which was a surprising cut maybe. Other than that, it's a little different and difficult simply because you see so little of actual things that might actually happen in the preseason. Obviously, like, we're getting information. We weren't there for the joint practices, but that's probably the closest that we're getting to actual game action. And I think we saw a lot of good things, but maybe some things that need to be improved. I think maybe Jalen Jones is one to watch based on that as well. The joint practices sounded like he had a lot of good work there as well. So for you then, who do you think grew the most, either from last year to this year or from through camp, whatever?
Well, two people kind of pop in my brain. One being Isaiah Land, because I mean, who really like knew about him until he kind of just popped up and was playing amazing. It wasn't even like the first week either. It was the second week of preseason against the Cardinals.
Yep.
So he played really well against the Cardinals and then played pretty well against the Bengals as well. He was in there getting pressure, doing what a D-line does, getting some tackles for losses, all the thing. And then the first person that kind of popped into my mind was Nick Cross. Just because of, especially after he hurt Josh Downs, just the how much he stepped up in that, I think was really good on him. I think it was needed for the team, and now they have like a weird safety rotation type of thing where they will rotate safeties and such. So like it'll be Blackman and Cross or whoever it is out there, where now that Cross can play both free and strong, kind of, and same with Blackman. They have more freedom to kind of mix around, especially with Nick stepping up into the position he has. So I have a lot of hope for Nick this season. So, okay, so with all this kind of being said, I think you kind of like hit on this a little bit, but what surprised you most about the initial 53-man roster?
You kind of hit on this. My biggest surprise was the 10 defensive linemen. Mm-hmm. I expected more in the neighborhood of 8, right? You got all your positions and one backup, especially with Samson Ebukam being knocked out for at least most of the season, if not all, with the Achilles. Obviously, if you don't have 10, then you don't have Isaiah Land that you mentioned. But the simple thing, like when Jelani's out, you're down to 4 tight ends that we could have been 5. I felt that Evan Hull needed a place on the roster as a 4th running back. And then the Ronnie Harrison, I get, because he's not a teamer. He's not on special teams like Trevor Denbo. It's just tough because he's so versatile in so many different roles. It's tough to see him go. But there was something else that was kind of a surprise because I had a Brisket for the Brisket.
Yes.
And if there are new people to our show, this is something that we do from time to time. We have a Brisket for the Brisket. You make a bold prediction.
Or Brisket for the biscuit.
Yes, Brisket or biscuit, depending on your preference. You can make a bold prediction. If it comes true, you get to eat the Brisket or the biscuit. If it does not come true, you get that food item in your face.
Yep.
So I made a bold prediction based on mostly on the Arizona Cardinals game that Blake Freeland, who played 6 games last year for the Colts, would not make the 53-man roster. He did.
Yep, he did.
And so that means that I had to have a Brisket in my face. Typically, we've done this with each other, but now that we are doing this remotely, now that you're in college, congratulations.
Thank you.
That means that another family member here gets the privilege of doing this. I will say there were tears shed over which family member got to do this.
Wow.
Your 7-year-old brother Ezekiel said that he wanted to do it, but then he changed his mind. And so your 10-year-old brother Hendrik was designated, but then Ezekiel decided he changed his mind again. So we had to back that down and say, okay, well, you get next. So
Yeah.
Ezekiel already is calling next on the brisket. Hopefully I get to eat the rest of them, but I don't know.
Yeah.
All that to say, we did pre-record this, so coming to you now is Hendrik giving me a brisket.
Blake Freeland tripped over someone and let someone by in the Cardinals game, so I risked it for the brisket and said he wouldn't make the roster. But he did. So instead of eating the brisket, I get slapped in the face by one. Hendrik? Lovely. Smoky.
That's the first time I've seen that. Did that happen just today?
Yep. We I got some meat for lunch, and with this in mind, the kids love this when I do this because I get meat and everybody have a wide variety of meat, and everybody gets to have their pick. I just would have rather eaten it, but
yeah, I could definitely tell.
It was quite messy. It was stuck. It almost got in my eye.
Yeah, he just really it on there.
Yeah, and Collier was filming it, and so he said that it wasn't good enough. I said, "Trust me, it was plenty good enough. I felt it.
Yeah.
Had to baby wipe it out of my beard and everything." So,
Oh my goodness.
yeah. So with that said, what position group are you most surprised about?
So there's a couple that kind of tie in with each other and all that. So as we have touched on twice now, this will be the third time. The defensive line has 10 people. They're all very talented in what they do and good at what they do, but I think there just didn't need to be 10. If that meant Isaiah Land got cut because he wasn't he wasn't good enough for it, so be it. Like, you need to have open roster spots for everybody else. I think the tight end kind of got settled by itself with Jelani not being a part of with him getting surgery and be on IR before the initial 53. So he's technically on IR for the rest of the season. He won't be able to play. But there's 3 running backs, which is okay. I mean, I guess that's fine.
Kind of normal.
Kind of normal, but we were, with the talent that we had and the depth that we had, we were expecting more. And then corners as well. Obviously, there's a safety thing where we rotate, so everyone kind of gets in, and we have I think 5 safeties. I believe 4. Okay, so
Yep.
with
4
everybody
safeties,
rotating,
5 cornerbacks.
yeah, 4 isn't a bad number necessarily. Like, it's okay. It's 2 per, especially with people being able to flip flop and play both positions of safeties, and some formations not even having 2 safeties in it. But the 5 corners was also really surprising to me because we run nickel a lot because we have the best slot corner in the league.
Yep.
So we run 3-4 corners a lot, which puts us at 2 or 1 extra corner that's just on the sideline, and that is kind of nerve-wracking a little bit.
Yeah.
Because corners, they can lay the hit, but they can also get hit. Like, if you're a running back and you get to the second level, you're not necessarily trying to juke out a corner because they have the ability to, swipe you up and get you down. If they're a smaller corner and you're a bigger running back, you are going to run them over. So it's more likely for corners to get hurt that way. With that being said, us only having 5 and we run nickel a lot, so kind of put everything together and you're like, okay, we put 10 D linemen out there, but we chose not to get another corner. What are we kind of doing here, especially in a pass-heavy league? So I don't know. That's kind of my thoughts on that. So now we've kind of talked about each individual section. How do you feel about just the overall roster, as a whole?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of talent, but I'm I'm going to reiterate exactly what you're saying, that 10 to go more than one deep at the defensive line position, and then not even be too deep for a 3 cornerback setup, which is very, very normal right now in the league. You know, it's gone from you have 3 linebackers and 2 corners into you have 2 linebackers and 3 corners almost always. So in a league that is increasingly pass heavy, what they have said is that it is more important to get to the quarterback that is throwing than it is to protect from the quarterback throwing. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah.
So it's better to put the pressure on rather than guard against the pass.
Yep.
Unfortunately, I think those things have to go together. And so Chris Ballard had his press conference preseason, and shout out to James Boyd from The Athletic for reaching out to X and actually asking our Chris Ballard at his presser. So I have that. You can take a look at it thanks to Colts.com.
Going into year 8 with the franchise, you know your record, you know what you've done, haven't done. Why should people believe that you are the right GM for the job to take this team for its been to where you want to go?
I've never I guess maybe because my DNA is not, I've always had a strong belief in myself and those around me, strong belief in what we do. And if you just kind of look through the first few years, and, you know, we made the playoffs 2 of the first 4, had to overcome a, you know, quarterback retiring on us, still found a way. I thought our 20 team was excellent. We just lost a tough game to Buffalo. That ended up being a really good team. And I thought in 21 was another really good football team. And it all kind of fell apart. The last 3 years not making the playoffs, it's a disappointment. I'm not going to sit here and say it wasn't. But I still have a very strong belief in what we're doing, how we're doing it, and how we're going to get there. And that will not – either you believe for something or you believe nothing. Like, it's easy to vacillate and go with what the world wants you to do. You either believe in something or you don't. This is what we believe. If it gets me fired, so be it.
So after the question was asked, some people questioned it and said it was unfair, that they love the Indianapolis media, but maybe they're being too harsh. But I have 2 comments about that. One, if this happened in New York or LA or Chicago or Philadelphia or any one of those, or Dallas, where we were close to, any one of those big markets, that would not be the only question of its kind that was asked in this kind of situation.
Exactly.
You've now missed the playoffs 2 years in a row. Is that correct? 3 years in a row.
Yes. Yeah.
21, 22, 23.
Yep.
And made it to the playoffs, but lost against Buffalo, and then missed the previous year. But, you know, that was because of Andrew Luck retiring. So I'm just saying, like, if any other, you're going to get hammered by all the questions. So maybe the Indianapolis media is too nice. But the other thing was, funny enough, based on our question, and thanks to James Boyd, every single one of the headlines for the Colts media about Chris Ballard's press came from that. It's what I believe. It'll be it. That's what it was. And so my question then and I might chime in on this too, is heading into the season, whose seat is hotter? Chris Ballard or Gus Bradley?
That is a good question. So
Apparently, we're good at asking questions.
Yeah. So he said, if I get fired on this hill, so be it. He's willing to get fired standing on this hill, which the league is a changing league. It is not a standstill league. It is not always just this is how it goes and that's it.
Not for long.
Exactly. So it changes I'd say every 4 or 5 years, maybe sooner than that. Just with like how things are run. Obviously, there was the new kickoff rule that was added this year, which is a big change in special teams. The league is always changing. So you always have to be on your toes. You always got to be thinking about what's ahead, what happened, how you can learn from that. I think both Gus and Chris kind of have a problem with this. I think Shane is very good at doing this. But I think Gus is very traditional in his defense. 4 down men, they are going to run, they're going to rush the quarterback, and we are going to have everybody sit back and cover in a zone or cover some guy, right? Which doesn't always work because miscommunications are more likely to happen whenever you do that type of thing between secondary and linebackers. So, yes, there's coverage sacks and all that, but you have to have like a very, very good defensive line to do that, which we have a good defensive line, but I don't think our defensive line is good enough and our secondary is good enough to play that type of ball. We need to adjust to our team who we have now. Yes, it may have worked 4 or 5 years ago, but the league is changing. Your team is changing constantly. So you have to be able to adjust, adapt to your play style. And then with Chris, same thing. You have to be able to adjust and adapt. Now, I am not in his shoes, so I don't know what he's going through, what the team's going through necessarily on the inside, what he's thinking of. So it's kind of hard for me to sit here and judge them for what they're doing. But in all reality, the league is changing, and you don't see other teams necessarily having this big of a problem. There are some teams that do, but look at what those teams are doing. Look at how they're succeeding, kind of that type of thing. So you have to be able to adjust and adapt to what the league is, where your team is, and how you view stuff as well. So,
yeah, I think, okay, so honestly, I'm really surprised that Gus Bradley made it through last year offseason. I think that was a little bit of a shock. And then because, okay, Gus Bradley is known mostly for his time at the Seahawks with the Legion of Boom. And just like you mentioned, with the changing of the league, one of those things is there can be no more boom.
it's true. Yep.
You can't hit people across the middle like you used to, or hardly at all. So one of the foundations of his system is already off the table.
Mm-hmm.
Another one of his things is to get pressure with 4 and cover. In order to do that, you have to be able to have the 4 to have the pressure. The Colts had 51 sacks last year, set a franchise record. And then they got Latu on top of that. Yes, they lost Sampson, but it seems to me that is working. But in order for those 4 to get there quick enough, you also have to have enough good coverage on the backside to allow them to get there.
Yes.
I don't know if you can do that with first and second year guys, which is, we're talking about Jalen Jones and Juju Brents, second year guys. And Juju didn't even play half the season last year. And then you have to be able to, in today's NFL, you have to be able to blitz. You have to get creative. And it seems like Gus Bradley is either not able to do that or not willing to do that.
Yep.
But in all of that, then I say, is Gus Bradley actually given the tools from Ballard correctly? Because he has to use second-year guys because Ballard didn't go out and get anyone else, even though there were other people on the market other than just Snead. He didn't go out and get anybody. Yes, the big thing was signing the guys the Colts had. They did that. They did great. They aligned all the contracts. I think it's great. They aligned all the contracts to the end of AR's rookie season or rookie contract. But what tools is Ballard equipping Bradley with?
Yeah.
So whose seat is hotter? I think immediately, straight out of the gate, it's Bradley. But if it there that it's the tools rather than how you're using them, if Gus Bradley shows growth in his ability to do some creative blitzes and use the 10 defensive linemen that he has, but somehow he's not able to use the thin cornerback room, then I think it flips back to Ballard. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think
that.
Yeah. I think that's a very good point that you have there. I didn't actually answer the question, so I kind of come back to it and answer it now.
All right.
I think that Ballard is on the hotter seat because of kind of what you explained, but I think that during the preseason and joint practices, Ballard kind of splashed in some creative stuff. Not Ballard, Bradley. Splashed in some creative stuff on defense. I saw blitzes happening. I saw designed what's it called? The coverage stuff where I can't think of it right now. Where you it's fake coverage. I'm pretty sure is what it's called. Where you look like you're like cover 2, for example, but then you drop someone back and you're in cover 3. Then just where it's like shell coverage, where it looks like you are in a certain coverage, but you're not actually in that coverage. You are just disguising it.
Yep.
There you go. Disguised coverage.
Yep.
So I saw some disguised coverage. I saw blitzes whenever I wanted to see stuff. The stuff that I had been asking for, I saw splashes of during preseason, which obviously you're not supposed to show everything in preseason. It's just to get your third, fourth, maybe second string guys their spot. So they did that. They did what they needed to. They cut the roster, but they also showed splashes of like, hey, we can do this. And it's like, if you're looking hard enough, we can do this, and we'll show you more of it in the season whenever it comes around. So that made me happy. I was like, okay, cool. I see this. I noticed that. Thank you, Gus, for doing that. So I think in reality, it's on Chris now to do his part. And free agent signings aren't closed yet. So he can still go out and get another person if there's someone out there that he likes. Pretty sure Justin Simmons is just sitting there, still out there.
Simmons went.
Oh, he did?
To
okay.
The Falcons, right?
Oh, he did. Right, because the Falcons have Matthew Judon as well. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of scary. Anyways, we're not a Falcons podcast, Colts. But there are still guys out there that Chris can go and get. I'm sure there's someone. Even if they are just a veteran presence and they don't play that much, a veteran presence is still pretty big for us as younger guys. So I think kind of backpacking off of what you said with the tools that he was given, I think Gus is doing a good job with what he was given. I wouldn't hate seeing 5 down linemen at some point because we have 10. So I wouldn't hate seeing that. And then, I don't know, like dropping 1 in coverage, like a small, like a across the line of scrimmage coverage type of thing, like a QB spy. I don't know, something like that. Just splashing some ideas out there. But I think Gus did a good job preparing and using what he needed to, what tools he had to do a good defense there.
All right. Well, that's it for today. Tomorrow, we'll be back with an update from the South. So we will take you around the AFC South. This week, we will preview each team's schedule and give you our prediction on their final record.
Yep. This is Liam.
And this is Kevin.
Reminding you to stay all in, Colts.
All In Sports Network. We love sports.